Despite the last game in the series being a browser game coming out nearly 7 years ago in 2012, Onimusha as a series has made quite a name for itself. In 2017 it was Capcom's 7th top-selling franchise with over 8 million copies sold. The original Onimusha Warlords for the PlayStation 2, when released back in 2001, was the first game for the console to surpass 1 million sales. A bug in the game during testing also inspired Hideki Kamiya to incorporate juggling in a game he was working on at the time, which turned out to be Devil May Cry. Onimusha Warlords was also one of the games reviewed in the very early days of Infinite Backlog, when the review series was originally called A Journalistic Review. With the HD remaster coming out in January 2019, I thought this would be a good opportunity to revisit the game as well as draw some comparisons between it, the original PS2 game, and Genma Onimusha for the Xbox. Much like the survival horror series Resident Evil, Onimusha Warlords is a survival horror game with puzzle elements. In this game you play as the samurai Samanosuke Akechi and at times his ninja companion Kaede as they seek to rescue Princess Yuki from the clutches of the Genma, called demons in this game. As with future games in the series, Samanosuke was modelled off actor Takeshi Kaneshiro, who also provided the Japanese voice for him. The opening movie for Onimusha shows the Battle of Okehazama in 1560 between Nobunaga Oda and Yoshimoto Imagawa. This battle was a very important battle for Nobunaga historically, as he was able to defeat the enemy forces numbering 25,000 with only about 3,000 men by taking advantage of the weather to launch a surprise attack. However, in this game, while Nobunaga still wins the battle, he is struck down by an arrow to the throat. Fast forward to a couple of months after the battle, and Princess Yuki is writing a letter to Samanosuke requesting his help at Inabayama Castle, known today as Gifu Castle. Maids and servants have gone missing, and Yuki believes that the Genma are behind this. Samanosuke and Kaede rush to help to find that Princess Yuki has just been kidnapped by the Genma. When the game begins, Samanosuke is able to find the princess fairly quickly and fend off the Genma, but after a stronger Genma knocks him away, Samanosuke is granted a magical gauntlet by the Oni, or ogres, in this game. This gauntlet would allow Samanosuke to defeat the Genma and absorb their souls. Thus, Samanosuke and Kaede's adventures to rescue the princess and stop the now resurrected Nobunaga begins. But is the game any good? Find out in The Good. Onimusha's gameplay is perhaps its biggest asset here. The game has a good mix of puzzle solving and action gameplay, and the weapons that Samanosuke picks up throughout the game have their advantages and disadvantages, whether you want to go for a stronger but slower weapon, or a faster but weaker weapon. The main weapons Samanosuke will be using also come with orbs which grant that weapon an elemental power. These will allow Samanosuke to unleash special attacks at the cost of magic power to deal more damage to enemies. Once you've knocked an enemy down, you can stand over them and drive your weapon down to deal heavy damage to them. You can also land a critical attack on an enemy if you time your guards or attacks right to instantly kill them. By killing the Genma that stand in your way, Samanosuke can absorb their souls to restore his health, magic, or enhance the weapons and orbs. Upgrading the orbs will increase the power of Samanosuke's magical attacks, as well as allow him to progress further in the game by unlocking the glowing doors throughout the castle. At certain points during the game you also play as Kaede, and while she doesn't have as much health, cannot use magic attacks, or absorb the souls of the Genma, she does have throwing kunais available which don't require her to ready them before throwing, and can access places that Samanosuke can't. I found the gameplay for Onimusha is what draws me back to the games, and is one of the few games I'll willingly replay on a more regular basis. The Genma that you encounter throughout the game I think were quite unique. They have different quirks and patterns, and while a couple of them you could consider palette swaps, they were different enough for me to mix up the strategy to beat them. You can also fight the different Genma in the Dark Realm, a 20 level gauntlet which, if you're able to survive, would grant you a lot of souls to enhance with, some useful items, and a key item for the most powerful weapon in the game. The game also makes this more manageable by allowing you to move your character with the analog stick as opposed to the original's tank controls, which is still present if you prefer to play the game that way. While tank controls are something I did complain about in the original review, looking back on it now it's something I've gotten accustomed to, and I can sort of understand, given the pre-rendered backgrounds, why they had to go with tank controls. The game also has buttons to allow Samanosuke to quickly switch between his weapons, which is an absolute godsend over having to go into the menu every time you want to swap weapons. With that, I think we've come to the end of the good, so let's look at what wasn't so great with the bad. I feel that remastering the PS2 version of Onimusha Warlords wasn't the right way to go. If anything, I think a remaster of Genma Onimusha would have been the better option. Genma Onimusha brought some changes to the table when it was released on the Xbox in 2002. The game introduced a green soul bar as well as charge attacks for your weapons. As you kill Genma, you may see a larger green soul come out. You and the Genma will then fight over the green soul to see who would ultimately absorb it. If you absorb it, it adds to the bar, and once you have 5 green souls you can activate them for temporary invincibility and to slowly recover your health bar. If a Genma absorbs it, they grow stronger and get new moves. They also drop more souls when killed. The enhancing system was reworked in Genma Onimusha so that when you enhance Samanosuke's weapons, you also enhance the orb at the same time, with the trade-off being that you need more souls to level the weapons up. The enemies also did more damage, and healing items were more scarce, which added to the survival aspect of the game. The game also introduced new enemies and areas for you to explore. The one thing I won't miss from Genma Onimusha is the creepy doll that stalks you throughout the castle. I would have considered Genma Onimusha the definitive version of the game. This is more minor than anything, but I feel the game's music isn't quite as memorable and doesn't really work as well with the atmosphere over the original. There is a reason for this. The original composer, Mamoru Samuragochi, was once hailed as a digital Beethoven as he claimed to have been deaf. Turns out in 2014, another man named Takashi Nigaki had come forward and revealed that he was the real composer for the original Onimusha Warlords, and that he'd been ghostwriting for Samuragochi. Nigaki would compose the tracks and Samuragochi would take credit for them. Since then, a different soundtrack was used, as Capcom would have most likely wanted to distance themselves from using music with a controversial history. With that, I think we've covered off the bases here, so all that's left now is for me to give the opinion. Onimusha is still a fun game today, and while I was a little disappointed that the remaster was of the original PS2 game and not Genma Onimusha, I did grow up playing the PS2 version, and it's still a game I replay to this very day. The game is a little on the short side and you can complete it in under 3 hours if you know what you're doing, but the game is a good way to kill a few hours. If you're a fan of action games, Onimusha is a series I would highly recommend. I would also recommend the game to those who have played Resident Evil as well. The HD remaster is passable, though I think it could have had the potential to have been so much more. I'm hoping that one day in the future we might see a new entry in the series. So with that, it's time for my rating. I would give the HD remaster of Onimusha Warlords the level 3 Ryzan sword out of 10. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review. If you enjoyed today's review, feel free to check out some of our other videos and subscribe for more. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram and our Facebook page. Once again, thank you for watching.